Howdy. What is crack-a-lackin'? I'm Josh Reisig here with Bryant Koleski, and welcome to episode 17 of the Back of the End Zone podcast. We are pumped today. I think I'm a little bit more pumped than Brian is, but we're coming at you this week talking about Wisconsin football headed into the 2023 season. And there's some big question marks with Wisconsin football because they play in the Big Ten West.
But they're the biggest sleeper in the Big Ten. Big Ten, because they just hired Luke Fickell. He was able to find success at a Group of 5 school like Cincinnati, take them to the playoff, hang in there with Bama for 2.5 quarters, and I think he brings a new aspect of recruiting to Wisconsin.
Oh, easily, and he's shown that. He's already shown that with the upcoming.
Wisconsin's schedule this year is works really in their favor, to where they could really come out on top of the Big Ten West and give Ohio State or Michigan, whoever comes out on that side in the Big Ten championship,
they can give them hell,
their money. And I think Wisconsin you want to talk about sleepers for the playoff, I think Wisconsin is one of those teams.
And after we talk about Wisconsin, after we go a little bit in depth and give our takes and kind of an outlook or a preseason outlook for their season, we're also going to talk about the 4 new teams entering the Big 12 between UCF, BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston. And there's some big question marks between there with who's going to come out on top of the Big 12, especially with the addition of those 4 new teams, because there's a couple of those teams that really have a shot at coming out in the Big 12, coming out on top of the Big 12 in their first year there. And then after that, we're going to give our predictions for the NFL division of the NFC East. And that's another thing where it's one of those
Eagles fly for the second year in a row.
I think it's going to happen for the second year in a row. But like we were just talking about, I mean, the NFC East every year, just for whatever reason, there's just some crazy crap that goes on every year, and every single year, all of those teams are like mid, but they're slightly better than mid, and they're all super competitive with one another.
Right.
So, I mean, it's literally just the battle of mid in the NFC East. But we'll get into that at our last segment in segment 2. But heck yeah, I think we're ready to dive right into Wisconsin football. Segment 1 is brought to you by 251 Pool Works, family owned and operated. 251 Pool Works offers pool cleaning, maintenance, and repair. They serve the greater Mobile, Baldwin counties, and Pensacola areas. And if you're needing any sort of monthly cleaning for your pool or pool service, repair, whatever it may be, give 251 Pool Works a call at 251-978-7736 for the Pool Works. We thank you to 251 Pool Works for sponsoring this segment. And let's dive right in to University of Wisconsin football. I think this upcoming year is, one of their more exciting years, considering that Luke Fickell, Cincinnati's former head coach, is coming in after Wisconsin went 7-6 last year. And Luke Fickell proved that he was a phenomenal head coach at Cincinnati. During his tenure there, he went, 57-18, had a playoff run, lost to Alabama, obviously. You were happy about that. But I think for Wisconsin fans, it's something to be happy about with all that he's brought in transfer-wise, and just with all the talent that was already at Wisconsin that's staying there, between Braylon Allen and their other guys like Shamir Dyke, one of their wide receivers, and all of their linebacker talent on defense. Luke Fickell has the talent that he wants there, a lot more talent than he had at Cincinnati. And I mean, in the Big Ten West, he's got a big shot.
And Wisconsin is one of those teams. We talked about Penn State in the Big Ten East a few weeks ago. Wisconsin is one of those teams in the Big Ten and all of college football you think should be in it every year. And the last few years, even in years where they've gone to the Big Ten championship and played Ohio State or Michigan or whoever it is, it seems like they've underachieved to what their standards are, and their standards should be playoff and national championship, because of their Wisconsin football. They have a great defense every year, and somehow their offense kind of seems, other than the years when they had Jonathan Taylor and Melvin Gordon, their offense kind of seems to be a little lackluster, and when you play a team like Ohio State, when you get up against those teams with the high-powered offenses, you can't keep up, because you don't have. I mean, you don't have that guy at quarterback. But I think now with Luke Fickell coming there, he could find the right guy at quarterback. They brought in Tanner Mordecai from SMU, who a lot of people are high on. I was high on him at SMU. And Luke Fickell, I've had a lot of tremendous respect for him over the past few years. What he's done at Cincinnati. The only reason I was happy that we beat Cincinnati was to prove that the Group of Five doesn't belong in the playoff. I mean, but
I mean, in the 14 playoff, yes, but I mean, once we get to the 12,
once the 12-team playoff, it'll create more opportunities. But set that aside. Luke Fickell coming in is a huge get for them, not only on the field but off the field when it comes to recruiting. You already see an impact. They finished. What would you say earlier? You said
18th. They finished with the 18th recruiting class for the 2024 class. As of right now, they have the 18th recruiting class, and the class
finished 40th last year.
Yeah, and the class of 2023 they were like 40th, and then class of 2022 they were 41st. So Luke Fickell's already made a huge impact there. And I mean, you already look too. They got Luke Fickell brought with him transfers from Cincinnati. He brought with I'm pretty sure a tackle and a center, and then also a wide receiver from Cincinnati who all started under him, who were phenomenal starters.
Yeah.
And then the crazy thing to me is Luke Fickell is like Ohio State. He played at Ohio State, but he's bringing in these receivers. He also is getting a receiver from USC, who was a phenomenal receiver at USC. He's getting a receiver from Oklahoma State that's transferring in there too. And I'm not saying that Wisconsin is going to have phenomenal receivers, but between Shamir Dyke, their number one receiver last year, Skylar Bell, Keontez Lewis, like they have the guys there, and they just got in a ton of transfers to help Tanner Mordecai. And they also are returning a lot of their offensive linemen between the transfers that they got from Cincinnati, the center and the tackle. And then there's like 5 other guys that had tremendous playing time last year that starred in over 10 games each. There's like 2 starters returning and then a couple other guys that got snaps in almost every single game last year. And I think for Wisconsin, that's a huge thing, especially as we look into their schedule. Their schedule is a cakewalk. And I don't know if Wisconsin fans are thinking that right now, but as another Big Ten fan, I'm thinking that other than 2 games on their schedule, they have a cakewalk. They could easily win 10 games this upcoming year.
And the X factor for me, Wisconsin is obviously you've seen the running back talent they've had the past few years with like I said, Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor. Braylon Allen is a dog. He's a dude. Over 1,200 rushing yards last year, 11 touchdowns on just really 230 carries. But and
the year before that, he did the same thing, over
1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns in 2021. He is a complete running back, probably one of the top running backs, in next year's draft. I think they need to give him a little help, and that will come with Tanner Mordecai and some of these receivers they brought in. But man, it all flows through him. If they can run the ball with a little bit and be able to sprinkle, the pass game in there, dude, they will be just fine, especially with that defense behind them. Luke Fickell knows how to recruit defense. He knows how to coach defense. He had Sauce Gardner, Kobe Bryant, and a secondary at Cincinnati, and some dudes on the front 7 for Cincinnati. I remember, when Bama did play Cincinnati, they didn't target those 2 guys. I mean, Kobe Bryant and Sauce Gardner. They didn't target those 2 guys, and so he can bring a defensive element to Wisconsin, and he can bring offense. And so I think it all flows through Braylon Allen, and he's got to stay healthy. I know because he is a do it all back kind of back. But you were talking about their schedule, man. It's really okay. They go to Washington State, which I don't really know what Washington State is going to be this year. They go to Purdue, but they seem like they've kind of fallen off the past couple of years. I think their 2 toughest games, and they get them both at home, Iowa at home and Ohio State at home. If they can win one of those 2, they could go 11-1.
And make the Big Ten championship out of the West.
And they can win the Big Ten and make the playoff. They are like I said in the intro, they are a for real dark horse sleeper type team that if you don't watch out for them, they can make an impact.
Exactly. And like we said, with Luke Fickell, with Braylon Allen last year rushed for over 110 yards for, I'm pretty sure, over 7 games. 7 games
Yeah.
he ran over 110 yards, and there was another 3 or 4 games where he rushed for over 90 yards. And he's a dog. Last year against Ohio State, he rushed for 165 yards and a touchdown at Ohio State in the shoe. And it's not easy to do that. It's not. And the fact that he was able to do that against Ohio State is huge. And back-to-back years, he was second team All Big Ten. And I mean, he's their guy at running back. Like we were saying, Melvin Gordon, Jonathan Taylor. Wisconsin's known for having, I wouldn't say known, but the past couple of years, they've always had solid, really good running backs come through Wisconsin. And Braylon Allen's another one of those guys. And it really comes down to those 2 games when they have Iowa at home and Ohio State at home. And I think another thing, going into their linebackers, like we were just saying, Wisconsin's always known for having a great defense. They've had guys like TJ Watt, TJ Edwards, Ryan Connolly, JJ Watt, like guys that are in the NFL now. I mean, not JJ Watt anymore, but guys that are in the NFL now dominating. And they have guys coming back like Mema Nojang Meta. I don't even know if that's how you say it, but like he was phenomenal last year. They have CJ Getz coming back, who started all year, made some huge stops. And they have defensive players like Kimoy Latu, other guys that are making these huge leaps. And regardless, I think their defense is going to be even better than their offense next year. Luke Fickell is a great defensive coach. I think they're going to have a phenomenal defense. But I think one of the things that it comes down to, I mean, it's not a make or break thing, but I think one thing that Wisconsin fans are looking forward to is Clay Cundiff. We talked about this before the episode started. He's one of their tight ends that should be their starting tight end this year. He was this past year, but the last 2 years in a row, he has started the season off the first 2-3 games and then completely sat out the rest of the year because of leg injuries. And I'm like, that's something that's haunted him. And I think that if he comes back healthy, I think that's another dark horse thing that not many people are looking at. People are just like, oh, Braylon Allen, Luke Fickell. But if Clay Cundiff comes back healthy and he starts all year, that's a complete game changer for this Wisconsin offense, even if the receivers are mid. And I don't think the receivers are mid. I think they have better than mid wide receivers between Skylar Bell, Shamir Dyke, and Keontez Lewis and all the transfers that they got. But if he can come back healthy, this Wisconsin team, when they play Ohio State and Iowa at home, I think they can win those games. I just think another very questionable game for them, pending how their season pans out, is at Illinois. And that may seem like a joke, but Illinois, the past couple of years in the Big Ten, has just done, like you say with Auburn, they've done some voodoo shit where nobody's expecting it. And for whatever reason, Illinois is.
And that one could be a tough game because it is on the road to Illinois. Depending on what Minnesota's never a pushover, especially when PJ Fleck is there. I think another one, that Wisconsin fans in particular might say is the one to watch out for is Nebraska, because Nebraska with Matt Rule, they seem to be making that kind of jump too. Maybe not as quickly as Wisconsin, because Wisconsin hasn't been as bad as Nebraska has been the past few years. But I mean, that one could, but they have that one at home. Like I said, a lot of their toughest games, except for at Illinois and at Minnesota, they get all at home. So I really feel good about their schedule, their ability to go maybe 11-1, 10-2, and still come out of the Big Ten West and compete for a Big Ten title and compete for a playoff berth. I really feel that way about Wisconsin. Like if you asked me today who I like out of all of college football, who would be my dark horse to make the playoff and win their conference, it would be Wisconsin. That's what I gotta say. I mean,
I'll accept your take, but to me as a Big Ten fan, I don't see Wisconsin getting past Michigan, Penn State, or Ohio State on the East. But I mean, we don't know. We don't know.
I mean,
it's a coin toss because Luke Fickell coming in, he's a phenomenal coach. I mean, a lot of people forget that he coached at Ohio State for years, being an interim head coach, a defensive coordinator, cornerbacks coach, coaching everywhere at Ohio State. He was an alumni from there. And I guarantee you that he wanted to coach at Ohio State, but just right now, there's not a chance there.
Yeah.
And got the opportunity at Wisconsin. And now this guy is going to run everything. And especially when Ohio State comes to Camp Randall, like at the end of October, Luke Fickell is going to be making a run against his alma mater, trying to get that dub for Wisconsin to even boost their chances at getting into the playoff and getting into the Big Ten championship game.
And you say they might not have a chance against Penn State, Michigan or Ohio State, but we were talking about A&M last week, you know, about their ability not to, not get past Bama, Georgia, or LSU. I think those two teams are a lot of alike because they are sleepers in their conference and sleepers overall, to where they both have the talent to do so.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of going out there and doing it. Can they go out there and win the big games against Ohio State, Iowa? Same thing with A&M. We were talking about A&M last week. Can they go out and win those big games against Bama, LSU, Georgia?
Exactly. And the thing is, they're already the underdogs. We already know that they're the underdogs, and they know that too. And so going into the game, that just gives them even more momentum and hype going into it. It's like, and I swear, in Big Ten games, and my best friend is a Michigan fan, I'm an Ohio State fan, and we talk about it all the time. In the Big Ten, there's certain teams that Michigan and Ohio State play that shouldn't even be competing with either of those teams, but they go into the game like it's their freaking Super Bowl. And so that's why it's so competitive, because Michigan or Ohio State are expecting it to be a cakewalk. And maybe Ohio State's expecting when they go to Wisconsin, it'll be a cakewalk, and Wisconsin's going to come out swinging and punch them in the fucking mouth. And who knows? Like,
well, I'm gonna end with this, this last thing. I know Wisconsin fans are looking forward to next year's matchup, but when the Alabama Crimson Tide comes into Camp Randall in 2024, that's going to be. If I'm able to, I really would want to go to that game.
Brian, I'll get you that game.
We'll be graduated. I don't know where I'll be working at the time, but man, I really would love to go to that game in Camp Randall. If you're a Wisconsin fan and you can buy me a ticket and a plane ticket to the game and a plane ticket, please do so. No, I'm joking. Don't do that. But no,
I don't think any Wisconsin fan will be willing to do that either way. But
I'm excited for that matchup because you get to see, and it's kind of the same when, and I know Notre Dame's more prestigious than Cincinnati, but it's kind of the same thing when Brian Kelly made the transition from Notre Dame to LSU, where you knew he could coach, and you know he's an elite type of coach. Same thing, like in this, I'm comparing Brian Kelly's situation to Luke Fickell because I think it's the same, where you just upgraded in talent. So Notre Dame, as prestigious as Notre Dame is, they do not have the talent that LSU has.
100%.
And Cincinnati, with all the success they've had in recent years, still does not quite have the talent that Wisconsin would be able to draw in recruiting wise. And so now you get to see Luke Fickell do what he can on the Power 5 stage, and you saw he was able to hang with Alabama for about 2 quarters in that game against Bama when they played Cincinnati,
and that was with non-Power 5 talent. That was at Cincinnati in the American.
Now, a lot of it had to do with Bama was kind of I think Bama was kind of taking it easy because they did have a receiver hurt, and I'm getting off track here, but they did have a receiver hurt, and Bama didn't really want to test Sauce Gardner or Kobe Bryant. So, but I mean, what I'm saying though is that we'll get to see Luke Fickell with Power 5 level talent, and so that's what makes me excited about Wisconsin this year and next year when Bama
coming years. Yeah.
And it's a home and home with Wisconsin. We go to them next year and they'll come to Tuscaloosa in 2025, and so I'm excited for that. I mean.
Yeah, definitely something to look forward to. And I mean, just Luke Fickell coming to the Big Ten and out of the American Conference. It's something as a Big Ten fan to be excited about, that Luke Fickell is back in the Big Ten after playing for Ohio State. I know I keep mentioning Ohio State, but I mean, that's his alumni. And I mean, it'll be cool to see Ohio State come to Camp Randall at the end of October, and just the environment is going to be crazy. It is going to be nuts.
From watching Wisconsin games, Camp Randall seems to be an elite atmosphere in the Big Ten.
It is, and it's not. The thing is too, Camp Randall is nowhere near the biggest stadium in the Big Ten, which is just crazy. But their fans, I'm telling you,
that's all they got up there in Wisconsin is the Packers and the Badgers, man.
They got the Packers and the Badgers and Spotted Cow, and I'm telling you, when you come to Wisconsin, Yeah, that's Spotted Cow. Spotted Cow is a Wisconsin only beer, and I'm telling you, Brian, when you come to Wisconsin, we're getting you some Spotted Cow. So
All right.
that's all I
Well,
gotta say.
I know when I was in Alaska a couple weeks ago, they had this Alaskan ale on the ship and on off the boat. That was pretty darn good. Probably the best beer I've ever had. But you
Oh,
never
just
know.
wait till you, hey, just wait till you try Spotted Cow. I'm telling you right now. Any Wisconsin fans that are watching this right now, I know you guys have had Spotted Cow, and you better drop in the comments that Bryant needs to try it ASAP. We're when I come back to school, I'll bring you some. So just
All
wait.
right, I look forward to it.
Yeah, but so I think that's going to wrap it up for our segment 1 about Wisconsin, and that's going to take us right into talking about the 4 new additions to the Big 12, along with the NFC East and what it's looking like for the NFC East and the Big 12 for this upcoming year.
Yep. Before we get into segment 2, this segment is sponsored by Now Fitness. Now Fitness is a gym and fitness center based in Grove Hill, Alabama. They are owned by Corey Creighton. They do personal training, group sessions with CrossFit and other workouts, and they help local athletes train and get in their best shape. Football season is coming up, man. They've done a lot of hard work over the season. Before the season starts, call 251-269-3065 for more. They work incredibly hard every day. So and I watch some of their stuff. They do a lot of things. But thank you to Now Fitness and 251 Pool Works for sponsoring, us every episode. Couldn't do it without them. But now our next segment, before we get into the NFL, 4 new teams were added into the Big 12, and I think Big 12 is having their media days this week. I'm not sure. I don't follow the
They
Big
are.
12.
They are. Yeah, it starts. I'm pretty sure
I think it
it
started
started.
like this.
It started today, and I mean, as this podcast when it releases, it'll almost have already been over.
And so 4 new teams have joined the Big 12: UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, and Houston. And Josh, I want to know your thoughts on which out of these 4 teams could have the most success early. Like which one of these 4 teams could find themselves, having a shot to, go maybe 9-3, 10-2, or maybe even 11-1 in the Big 12, and having a shot to maybe win the Big 12 title this year or next year, having that early success, going from the Group of 5 to the Power 5.
I think if any of these teams out of those 4, as of right now, given the situation after just talking about Luke Fickell leaving Cincinnati and going to Wisconsin, I think if Luke Fickell was still at Cincinnati going to the Big 12, I think Cincinnati would have my vote. But due to them losing Luke Fickell, losing a couple guys to the transfer portal, I think the number 1 team that is in the new addition to the Big 12, to me, and I'm pretty sure to you too, is going to be UCF headed into this upcoming year. I think with Gus Malzahn holding the reins, and they have a couple other guys like one of their wide receivers, Javon Baker, who's really good.
And for Bama, they got John Rice Plumlee, the quarterback that came from Ole Miss.
And I'm pretty sure, is that the quarterback that played baseball too? Or I think that might be a different. Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
and
good dual athlete.
Gus Malzahn is a guy, he's coached in the SEC, coached at Auburn. He has the most wins against Nick Saban at Bama currently. Or I mean, while he's been at Bama currently, and Gus Malzahn knows how to win. He's done it on the biggest stage. He took him he took Auburn to a national title appearance. A couple other huge ball games. But UCF, and I have a little animosity towards UCF because they did try to claim a national championship in 2017 that we won fair and square after Tua threw the second and 26 to Devontae, freshman and future Heisman winner Devontae Smith, to win the national championship against Georgia. But that's just me playing around. But no, I think UCF. I think I would say them or BYU. I think BYU has had some success recently. All 4 of these teams really have seen success recently, which is probably what's prompted them to make that jump to the Power 5. I think all 4 of these teams had a legitimate argument to move up.
But I think they deserve it through every sport too. Literally looking at all sports aspects wise between.
Houston's really good at basketball.
Yeah, like every single sport, they all are pretty elite at, and they were in the American Conference and adding them to the Big. All 4 of these teams could compete right off the start in the
Yeah.
Big 12, especially
And
after them losing Oklahoma and Texas after this upcoming year. Like,
yeah.
it gives them even more of a shot.
Yeah, exactly. When Oklahoma and when Oklahoma and Texas leave the Big 12, and I know Kansas State just won it this past season, but I think it becomes more wide open than it ever has
Oh,
been. I mean, the
yeah.
last several years it's kind of been ran by OU when Lincoln Riley was there. Texas has been in it a few times.
Baylor's kind of been up there too.
Baylor, but I think it becomes more wide open than it's ever been, and I think UCF with just I think with Gus Malzahn's ability to recruit. I mean, he knows how to recruit at a Power 5 level because he's done it, and I think I think it's just the experience factor for me when it comes to UCF. But I do think, I think Cincinnati's got a little bit, like you said, with Luke Fickell leaving. I think Cincinnati's got a little bit of rebuilding to do. But I do think Houston has a shot. They lost their quarterback at the draft, Clay Helton. No, it's not Clayton Tune. They lost him to the draft, but they got to break in a new quarterback. And BYU also lost a quarterback to the draft. So I think UCF has a lot returning and a lot of experience that gives them the chance to compete and win early in the Big 12.
Oh yeah, easily. And I think we just both agree with the whole Gus Malzahn situation, exactly what you just dove into. And I seriously think UCF. I mean,
I would love to disagree with you to make it more interesting, but man, it's kind of hard.
They could seriously come out on top of the Big 12 in their first year in it.
Yeah.
And some Big 12 fans might be like, "What? There's no way."
Now maybe BYU can do some of the Mormon stuff and do some crazy stuff.
Go cougar hunting like Zach Wilson and
yeah.
right away. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. BYU, the Mormons, they get very serious about their religion and football. So you never know what they can do.
Blood, so
But no. For I think if I didn't pick UC, if I couldn't pick UCF, I'd probably pick BYU. But man, UCF, I think we're like you said, we're both in agreement on that. UCF, just I think they have, like I said, and I'm repeating myself. They have the experience at coaching and in their roster to compete early in the Big 12.
I would 100% agree with you. And I don't know if we really have much else to say about the Big 12 because that's just another conference that is really wide open. And it's like, I think it's
winning it this year, but they're still losing to Bama week 2.
I think the Big 12 is more wide open than any other Power 5 conference right now. Looking at just strength of conference and stuff, I think that the Big 12 is as wide open as it gets between the ACC, SEC, Big 10, and Pac-12. But I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Gus Malzahn can do in his first year as
all these teams can do.
Power 5 coach. I mean, obviously he has the Power 5 experience, and I mean, we'll see what happens. But that takes me right in to what we kind of led into a little bit in our intro. But the NFC East and the NFL is our segment today, diving into the NFL, and it's just our conference because last week we went to the AFC East. This week we're just hopping over to the NFC East, makes things a little easier. But between the Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders, who do you have coming on top, Ryan?
I think the top 2 teams are the Cowboys and the Eagles. The Eagles have a lot returning from last year. They didn't lose a lot of guys in free agency. They did lose Miles Sanders, but they gained DeAndre Swift. I think they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but they went defense heavily in the draft. We were talking about this before the episodes, before we started, started the episode. The last 2 decades, the NFC East has been kind of crazy into where no team has won it back to back, and a different team has won it every year for like the past 20 years. Well, I think that comes to an end this year. I think Jalen Hurts and the Eagles come back out on top just because I like where they're at coaching wise. Nick Sirianni does really a good job of utilizing the offense of what he has with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is not the best passer, but ever since his days at Alabama and then when he went to Oklahoma to learn under Lincoln Riley, and then his first couple years in the NFL, he has become a much better passer. And the Eagles, they went out and their defense is going to be really good. They're basically the Philadelphia Bulldogs on defense. I mean, they went out and got a bunch of Georgia guys. They're trying to recreate the 2021 Georgia defense. But I really like the Eagles, man. The Cowboys. It's I really
The
I just
thing with me is, trust me, I like the Eagles too. And from an outside looking in type of perspective, I think that the Eagles can do it again. They can win the NFC East and they can have a big run. But the big what ifs to me are that they have a new offensive coordinator coming in, they have a new defensive coordinator coming in. And from weeks 9 through 17, they will face 7 playoff teams that were in the playoffs last year. And to me,
beat the best to be the best.
That is true. But to me, it's just there's a huge question mark just with how this conference, this division has been in previous years, and then heading into this year with just the question mark between, like I just said, new defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, and just the competitive nature that they're going to have going into those weeks 9 through 17, where 7 of those teams were playoff teams last year, and 5 of those teams won a playoff game. So it's like,
and I think the other 3 teams in the division have improved. I mean, the Cowboys will always, as long as Jerry Jones is the owner, I think the Cowboys will always be relevant in a sense. The Cowboys have the Cowboys they're going to be relevant, and they're going to they're probably going to be they're probably going to either win the division or be second. I think they're the biggest question mark because Dak really kind of had a tough year last year with turnovers. They didn't get the production out of running back that they usually have with Zeke. Now, Tony Pollard came on really strong the last couple of years, and that's why they, went with Tony Pollard instead of keeping Zeke. But their offensive line has some new pieces to it. Their defense, a little bit questionable on the defensive line, except for Micah Parsons. They still got Leighton Vander Esch, but he can never stay healthy. Their receiving core, they have CeeDee Lamb, and they drafted Jalen Tolbert last year, from South Alabama. I want to see that dude succeed more than anybody, but I don't. They're just all over for me in terms of what they have. I do think the Giants and the Commanders both have a chance to maybe not.
I think the Commanders. I agree with you too. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think the Commanders
good.
have a really good shot at having a bounce back year. Just with, I mean, quarterback wise, it's iffy, but then looking at their defense, they have Deron Payne, who they were able to re-sign in the free agency. Yeah, they have a couple guys. Yeah, Jonathan Allen. If Chase Young can come back healthy and back to his true form, his rookie year, like dominant athlete, dominant player. Because
I like the corner that they drafted in the first round, Emmanuel Forbes.
Yeah, Emmanuel Forbes, Octavius Martin.
They still got Jeremy Reeves.
They still got Montez Sweat too.
Yeah,
like
I hope Jeremy Reeves sees more of the field on defense. He was mainly a special teams guy, but South Alabama alumni. He made the Pro Bowl last year. I would like to see him get more of a defensive role, but I think he can be pretty good in that defense.
Offensive wise too.
But it comes
Terry
down
McLaurin,
to
Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and Jahan Dotson's one
Antonio Gibson, Brian Robinson at running back. They still got McKissick. I think they still have McKissick. I could be wrong. It all depends on Sam Howell. I think that's who they're rolling with at quarterback this year. Some say they might be tanking, but I don't think so because I think it is Ron Rivera's kind of like last year to prove himself there. But the team I think to watch out for in the NFC East is the New York Giants, the Giants of New York. I just think if Daniel Jones can build off the year he had last year, dude got paid. I don't know how. He's got the same agent as Kirk Cousins. That agent is just.
It's Brandon McCartney's dad, the kid that we had, the Colorado.
Hey, he's able to negotiate for those two guys. But no, if Daniel Jones could have the kind of year, the one thing, the biggest question mark for the Giants is what's going on with Saquon Barkley. Is he going to play? Are they going to pay him? Right now, it's looking like neither one of those going to happen. I just saw something today where he could sit out. If he has to play under the franchise tag, their defense I think is going to be really good. Offensive line is going to get only going to get better with Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal at tackle. The receiving room is a little iffy, but I think it can improve. But yeah,
They signed Paris Campbell from the Colts. He's another solid receiver, but the receiving room is probably one of the most iffy things that they have.
So I think the division goes Eagles, Cowboys, both kind of right there. It just really depends on what the Cowboys have. I haven't really dove deep into their roster, but the Eagles have the best roster and the best makeup of talent in that division. I think they win it. I think the Cowboys are right there. Like you said, they do. The Eagles have a really tough schedule. That's why I think the Eagles they win it, but they win it close. It's not as easy as it was last year. I think it's a little bit harder this year. I think it's Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, and Commanders. I just think the Commanders are not there yet. I think the command, like we were talking about last.
I don't think the Commanders are there yet either. But
we were talking about last week with the AFC East. The Commanders could still go like 5. Well, they can't go 500 because it's 17 games. But
I mean,
last
year they went 8-8-1. So could be another year like that. Who knows?
That's right. They could have. I forget.
Could be another season just like
that.
Sometimes
I forget you can tie in the NFL. That's just because I hate ties. But no, I think that's how it goes. Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, and kind of basically the same order as last year. I really like the Eagles, man. If I had to pick any team to come out of the NFC in general, it'd probably be the Eagles
again.
The
Bears. Bear down, baby.
That'll make anybody spit their drink out. But no, I like the Eagles, man, and I have a little bit of bias towards the Eagles because I like Jalen Hurts. I've always loved Jalen Hurts because he's a Bama guy. I don't care OU fans. He's Bama and he's OU. We claim him too. But no, and Devontae Smith, I always have a love for that guy because he torched Ohio State in the national championship game. But
he's also the reason why Richard Sherman retired. That just came out recently too.
That's right. I forgot Richard Sherman had said that in his podcast that Devontae Smith is the reason he retired. And
these young guys. No,
but I like the Eagles, man. Fly Eagles, fly for the second year in a row in that division.
Yeah, I mean the Eagles probably will come out on top. It's so iffy, and yeah, I really don't know. I feel like the Cowboys always, just for whatever reason, and Cowboys fans know it too, they always fail. They always just come short.
Even when they do win the division, they'll somehow lose in the playoffs to the 49ers. Exactly. That's always how it goes.
Always just short. And I mean, we'll see what happens this upcoming year. But again, I think the Eagles, even with a new defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator in those 7 weeks in a row of playing playoff teams from last year, I still think that they're not going to have a problem at all with it because it's the Eagles and they're dominant.
Again, like I said it in the intro. I said it a couple minutes ago. Fly Eagles, fly for the second year in a row. I got the Eagles.
Bear down, baby. NFC champs.
Well, I can't say Broncos country let's ride just yet because we haven't got to the AFC West, but
well, you can still say it as a fan, because as a fan, I can still say bear down. I love the Bears. It sucks to be a Bears fan. Hopefully,
the thing is, the Broncos didn't start saying let's ride until Russell Wilson started.
Russell Wilson, yeah, that is true. That is true.
But still, the Broncos country let's ride. I can't be that corny. I'm sorry. I can't. And I hope Russ has a great year or a bounce back year, but I can't be that corny.
I mean, yeah, but YOLO, I guess. But I mean, yeah, Eagles are probably coming out on top. I mean, literally, it's been a wild episode of just talking about the potential of I feel like every team that we've talked about has potential to come out on top of their conference or division or whatever.
Except for Auburn.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying between Wisconsin, they have the potential to come out on top of the Big Ten. So does, what did we say? UCF coming out on top of the Big 12. And same with Philadelphia, obviously coming out on top of the NFC East. But yeah, I mean, just a lot of question marks in between there with certain things happening coaching wise and other stuff with players. But man, it's going to be a wild ride. And football is less basically a little over a month away.
Yeah, so, man, we got we got the preseason coming up. Even though it is the preseason, it's still football. There's still pads hitting pads. You get to see some of the rookies, we get to see Bryce and CJ and AR and Will Levis. We'll get to see those
Lots
4
of guys,
quarterbacks. You know, we'll get to see the rookies play. So
No, I'm pumped. I think we're all pumped, and I just cannot wait for football.
it's coming up close, man.
It'll be here before we know it, but heck yeah. So I think that's going to do it for episode 17 of the Back of the End Zone podcast. I'm Josh Reisick here with Bryant Koleski, and we've had a blast this episode just sharing our thoughts on Wisconsin, the Big 12, and the NFC East. But that's going to do it for now.
Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. You know, even if you dislike it, hit the dislike button. Leave a comment, leave some feedback. You know, if you're a player or a coach watching this, you want to be a guest, come on, we'll have you on. But yeah,
Heck yeah, let us know.
It's been a blast this episode.
Heck yeah.